Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niya bidvaro. It seems that man has an intrinsic, a very deep need to pray, to communicate with the Almighty, somehow to establish a relationship with Him. And we see that happening in the very beginning of the story of the Bible. We know that the first couple, Adam and Eve, had two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain decided that he was going to give God of the fruits of the land that he produced. Abel, upon hearing that, decided that he was going to give the firstborn animal as an offering to God also. God only accepted the offering of Abel. And here's where problems really started. We don't know it for sure. The Bible isn't very clear, but right after that episode, Cain kills Abel. Maybe because he felt rejected by God. Religion, apparently, in the very beginning, seems to be a cause of dissent, of conflict between human beings. But be that as it may, from that moment on, an offering of an animal became the way of communicating with God. In fact, this is what our ancestors did in the desert. They built a Mishkan, which was a portable temple that accompanied them throughout the 40 years in the desert and later on as well. What did they do in that Mishkan? They offered sacrifices to the Almighty. It was a way of getting close to God. Is there a God or not? That was never a question in the Bible. The Bible starts with Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the world. God is a given for the Bible. It is only we humans in the last few centuries that began questioning, is there such a thing as God or not? But for primitive man, for many centuries, either there was a God, there were many gods, but there were forces that were ruling this world. Eventually, a Beit HaMikdash, which means a permanent house of God, was built by King Solomon in the city of Jerusalem, and the sacrifices were brought there on different occasions. There was a daily sacrifice, there were sacrifices for the holidays, but one was not permitted to do a sacrifice anywhere else. This way, he also limited the number of sacrifices that could be offered. There were some people that felt, if you want to give God the best of what you have, what is the most cherished thing you have? Maybe that's your son, that's your child. So they were willing to offer even a child as an offering. And we see that. It happened during the time of the judges, that one of them promised that the first living being that is going to greet him when he comes back from battle, he is going to offer as a sacrifice to God. And then there is the very famous episode in the Bible where God tells our patriarch Abraham, go take your only son and offer him as a sacrifice to me. And Abraham takes his son Isaac, he binds him on an altar, and at the last moment when he's about to make the offering, he hears a voice that tells him, it was only to test you, Abraham. I only wanted to know if you are really loyal. But God does not want any human sacrifices. That was a very important message for the world. Only animal sacrifices. But then came the terrible episode. The Batei Mikdash, the first and the second Beit HaMikdash, were destroyed, and you could no longer offer sacrifices. It was a terrible blow to the Jewish people. How are you going to communicate with God now if you can no longer bring a sacrifice? But the Talmud, the Jewish genius, created something altogether different. There is something that is going to take the place of sacrifices, and we're going to talk about it in the future.